The following program contains coarse language. Listener discretion is advised.
Our fight for social, economic, racial, and environmental justice.
I think the American people are going to have to say to NBC and ABC and CBS and CNN, you know what? Forget the political gossip. Talk about the real damn issues facing this country.
Everybody, welcome to the show. Around the Nation right here. YouTube.com/GYTNation. I got a great show for you guys today. Great Monday show. So stick around here as we go around the nation for the next hour for some of the best stories in progressive political commentary from around the web and around the nation. So as you might have already noticed, we've got a story on Rand Paul. So what I like to do at the beginning of the show, of course, other than thank the patrons, you guys are awesome. You guys and gals that make the show possible, you're amazing. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. And couldn't do the show without you guys. So that's one thing that I like to do. Always like to thank the patrons at the beginning of the show and give you guys a shout out. The second thing I like to do is do a little bit of a rundown of what we're going to do today. Now, as I said, we've got Rand Paul. We're going to talk about Rand Paul and his interview on CNN. So he went and talked about the Affordable Care Act. Because everybody's like wondering, okay, so you want to repeal the ACA, and it's looked like it's pretty likely to happen. So what are you going to replace it with? Now, Rand Paul's the only guy that's like, I'm not going to repeal it without a replacement. You guys are nuts. We got to at least have something. We got to throw him a bone, right? So what exactly is that bone? And how bad are we going to be boned? Well, I've got some some details that he gave away during that interview that I want to talk about. Then economic news. Pretty disastrous study having to do with just how much the average American person can save. How much money they have to their name. It's not good. In fact, it's terrible economic news. So, and this is, of course, coming off the Obama presidency, which, President Obama himself has taken, I guess, advantage of some of the good numbers that were coming out of things like the jobs reports and the economy. Well, this is fairly disastrous for him. And it shows how some of the policies didn't exactly help regular people, working people, but actually did help the rich. And it's something that I had said a lot. Now, we've got that. And then we also have another disastrous economic story on millennials. Oh, boy. And there's, a lot of details in these stories. So there's a lot of numbers, a lot of things that I'm going to be breaking down in these stories. So, I mean, a lot of context in there to go through, a lot of details. So I know it gets a little long, it gets a little boring. I understand that, right? But it's important stuff. And then after that, we'll get to some fun stuff. We'll talk about the Republican that was taking Donald Trump's advice and grabbing women by the pussy. I kid you not. And then we've got Martin Shkreli and his... Martin Shkreli got hit with dog shit. Let's just say that. I'm going to give it to you straight, okay? Martin Shkreli just got hit with dog shit. And it's kind of awesome, and it's also kind of a bad thing. So, I've got a nuanced opinion on this. So, look, you might not like it, you might like it, you might get mad at me, you might not. But, hey, it's my opinion, take it for what it's worth. So, alright. Anyway, again, going to be a great show. Now, before I dive into it, I do want to talk just for a minute about Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Yes, it is a national holiday. It's Martin Luther King Jr. Day, which is great. Now, a lot of people on the right have kind of ignored that, which is kind of funny. But here's the thing, right? So as a nation, I think that we have done a lot of whitewashing, literal whitewashing, when it comes to Martin Luther King Jr. See, this guy was actually quite the radical. And that's not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm actually saying that that's kind of a good thing. I like a lot of what he had to say. This guy, he went out and he talked about not only racial justice, but he talked about economic justice. And you can't have racial justice if you don't have economic justice. This is the guy that floated a universal basic income in order to help reduce racial inequality. So, because look, if you don't have equality of opportunity, you're never going to get anywhere. And so that's one of the radical ideas that we don't hear about. And some of the other stuff that he had said, and of course, a lot of the pushback against him from not only the government. I mean, you had government sources, you had the FBI, of course, you had a lot of, obviously, a lot of white people pushing back against him as well. So he was much more of a radical than I think a lot of people give him credit for. And that's actually what's really interesting about Martin Luther King. And what's kind of sad about the normalization, not really normalization, I guess, but the way that we talk about this holiday and the things that we talk about when we celebrate this holiday. And we don't get to the more so-called radical stuff that he talked about and that he espoused. And again, I'm saying radical as in it's good radical and not as in terrible radical, like economic and racial justice. But anyway, those are some just real quick thoughts here about this whole thing. And so anyway, let's get into the show. We've got, again, we're going to start out with Rand Paul. All right. Now, Senator Rand Paul will be unveiling pieces of his new ACA replacement plan. Now, Rand Paul, of course, is one of the only ones, Republicans, that decided, hey, I'm not going to actually vote to repeal the ACA unless you actually have something to replace it. And then recently, over the weekend, he said, look, I've got a plan. I'm working on it. I'm going to present this plan to replace the ACA. So hopefully we can do a vote to, repeal and replace simultaneously so we don't leave so many people out. Okay, look, that in itself is commendable. At least he's trying. The rest of the Republicans are like, I don't care. I'm going to repeal this bill because, that's what our big money donors want. In fact, they're going to get the 400 richest households are going to get $7 million just for the repeal of some of these taxes in a year. So some of the ACA taxes that went into place to be able to subsidize people who can't afford insurance, the donors say, I don't want to pay that. That's gone. It's an average $7 million a year savings for the richest 400 families in the nation. That's amazing. But again, that's why they want it gone. And Rand Paul at least is saying, hey man, I know we're going to get rid of this, but let's at least have something. Now on Sunday's State of the Union, he gave a couple of details on what that replacement plan might actually look at. Let's take a look. This is a real short clip, but it gives you some hints.
Replacement should be the same day. The replacement bill that we put together, our goal is to ensure the most amount of people give access to the most amount of people at the least amount of cost. And I think this is where Obamacare failed. They wanted to insure people. Their motives were good. Their heart was in the right place. But they put so many mandates in it that they made it too expensive. So what's happening in the individual market, which is about 6 or 7% of the market, you have companies like Blue Cross of North Carolina losing $400 million because young, healthy people don't want to buy it because they're told, hey, you can get it anytime after you get sick. And so that they've broken the insurance model.
Okay, so look, there's not a lot of detail in that clip, and I've got more actually. But okay, let's just start out with some of the basic premises here. At least Rand Paul, I'm going to give him credit. He said, oh yeah, this plan that, by the way, Republicans came up with. He didn't mention that. Republicans came up with, well, their heart was in the right place. They wanted to insure people. However, here's one of the problems. Mandates. Too many mandates. Now, that logically, you would think, okay, well, since he's addressing mandates as being the problem, it's assuming that his plan will drop these mandates. Now, so what mandates are exactly is he talking about? I mean, because there are some pretty good things in there. For example, you've got the 80-20 rule, which is a mandate. Now, the 80-20 rule says insurance companies must spend at least 80% of the money they take in from premiums on healthcare costs. So, look, 80%. The 20% can be, profit, can be advertising, etc. That 80%, that 80-20 rule didn't exist before the ACA. Now, you've got that mandate. I'm assuming that he wants to get rid of that. What about the mandate on that you cannot bar pre-existing conditions? Nothing on that. And what's interesting is that there are so many different things that could qualify as pre-existing conditions. In fact, I want to break down a list of what is considered a pre-existing condition. And some of these are going to be very, very obvious. And there's a couple on here that you might be left scratching your head, wondering how that got on this list. And this isn't a full comprehensive list. This is what I could grab real quick. Now, one of them is cancer. That's obvious, right? Okay. That seems like, oh wow, that's quite a pre-existing condition. You've got cancer right now. Okay. Heart disease. Again, understandable that that's on there. Third one here, pregnancy. Now wait a minute here. Pregnancy. Pre-existing condition. You know that fetus that we're trying to protect? And that we're passing laws so that you don't abort it? Pre-existing condition. You've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. They consider that a pre-existing condition.
Give me a break.
Okay. So, look. You aside from pregnancy, of course, again, more obvious ones, diabetes, HIV, hepatitis, sleep apnea. Well, that's interesting. I didn't think that would be a pre-existing condition, but again, that makes sense. Now, here's where it gets a little vague. Mental disorders. Well, what mental disorders? Because there are a lot of different mental issues. For example, this would likely include things like anxiety and depression. That's now it's been considered a pre-existing condition. So if you were to sign up for insurance before the ACA and presumably afterwards, well, you would likely either get put into a high-risk pool or you would be denied coverage. I'm sorry, you've got anxiety. Well, okay, well that sucks, but how am I supposed to afford my meds if you won't give me insurance? Well, sorry, man. Well, that's going to make me more anxious and more depressed. Thanks a lot. But anyway, now you also have things like bipolar. I mean, look, this is a very, very broad definition. So really, this can include a lot of different conditions that you might not actually consider to be conditions. And that's the thing about pre-existing conditions. Now, a couple more, multiple sclerosis and muscular dystrophy. Those seem pretty obvious as a pre-existing condition. Okay. So that is nowhere near a comprehensive list of things. That's just, again, some of the stuff that I could grab. That is considered a pre-existing condition. Now, here's the thing, right? So, again, with pre-existing conditions, yes, it's going to cost money to cover those people. Oh, who'd have thought? It takes money to keep people healthy who have these conditions. No kidding. No kidding. So, speaking of mandates, well, you realize that that's why they put the individual mandate into the ACA. Why? Well, so it makes sure that there is enough money that the risk is spread so far throughout this pool that it makes sure that these people can still get covered while not having enormous costs. And again, enormous, more of like a relative thing. But regardless, that's the whole point of having an individual mandate. You get more people into the pool, and you're spreading that risk around. Now, a lot of people might not be happy with that. A lot of people aren't happy with the mandate. I can understand that. And there are a lot of people that are unhappy that their premiums go to sick people, people that need care. I don't want my money going to that guy. The guy's diabetes. He got the diabetes by eating too much. Well, no, not necessarily. I mean, there are different ways of getting diabetes. I have a cousin who, I know, personal anecdote, I probably shouldn't even talk about it. But I'm just saying, this guy was like a bodybuilder and then got diabetes. There's ways of getting diabetes that don't necessarily have to do with eating poorly. Okay? There are just, and of course, you could get cancer from nowhere. So it's just, I mean, it's one of those things where people don't have empathy for others. Oh, you're sick. I don't want to pay a little bit more in my premiums, even if it might not be that much, to ensure that this guy is able to get his own affordable coverage, which, by the way, he's also paying for, but it's also getting subsidized. Again, we've got this whole lack of empathy. Okay. So, look, this is why the individual mandate was kind of important, an important linchpin to this very law. But again, not very popular. Now, Rand Paul also made the point near the end of the clip that needs to be pointed out because it's absolutely factually wrong. Now, he said that there are companies in the individual market that are losing money because young, healthy people don't want to buy in. That actually is it's true. There are people that don't want to buy in that are younger and healthier. Okay, that part is true. However, he adds, because they're told, hey, you can get it anytime that you're sick. And so they've broken this insurance model. You're essentially blaming younger, healthy people who get sick later on and are like, oh my God, I need insurance because the treatment for whatever cancer or whatever's happening is astronomical. I can't afford this stuff. So I need help. So that part's actually not exactly true. Now, under the ACA, you're actually not able to sign up at any time. There are enrollment periods. So you could, once that enrollment period opens up, you can sign up. When you're outside of it, you're SOL. You can't sign up through the ACA anymore. You can still sign up for a private plan, and I'll get to that in a second. But you can't get it through the ACA. Now, if you have a pre-existing condition, some of the stuff that I mentioned up there, and you actually still try to sign up for a plan outside of the ACA, and I didn't actually know this before, you can still get denied for certain conditions because you're not within the framework of the ACA exchanges. In order to participate, your plans have to not discriminate against people with pre-existing conditions, but outside of that marketplace, where insurance companies can still go, because remember, there are insurance companies that pulled out of the market. Well, now those people are SOL. Okay, if they're outside of that enrollment period. So again, Rand Paul not exactly correct on that assumption of why the system is broken. There are many different explanations of why the ACA doesn't quite work. And one of them, I think, is because it's a for-profit healthcare system. Whenever you have something predicated on profit, it's going to leave people out that are too expensive to cover. And again, that's what Rand Paul's focused on. He's not focused on covering everyone. The Republicans aren't focused on covering everything and everyone. What they're focused on is, let's cover as many people as we can, but make sure that it doesn't cost very much. Let's look out for the health insurance companies. Let's look out for federal government spending. Where for me, and some of you might disagree, but I think, hey, let's spend money on people's health because that's kind of important. It's kind of the most important thing that you can have. If you don't have your health, then you can't possibly have a happy and productive life. You can't go out there and create businesses. You can't go out there and get a good paying job if you're constantly sick. You can't keep your job if you have cancer and you're going to die in 6 months. It's kind of important to be healthy. But anyway, now he also, and this is outside of the video, but he had more stuff because I couldn't get the whole video. Now he continues by saying that one of the reforms he wants for his replacement to the ACA is to, quote, legalize the sale of inexpensive insurance. Now, what exactly does that mean? I don't know. I don't know why it's not illegal, or why it's not legal, or whatever to sell inexpensive. Oh, actually, you know what? I do know what that means. That actually means let's return to the junk plans before the ACA that didn't actually cover everything. Those things that were barely considered health insurance. Basically, if you want to put it into car terms, because car insurance might be a good thing to contrast it with. This is like the PLPD of the health insurance world. Basically, hey man, if for PLPD you crash it, you're screwed. Okay, you have a very, very high deductible and barely any coverage. That's essentially what these inexpensive plans did. This is what these inexpensive plans did before the ACA said, okay, you can't do that anymore. You can't have these junk plans that qualify as barely insurance. No, you can't do that. We got to get rid of them. That's why a lot of people, a lot of right-wingers especially, were pissed because their plans got canceled out by the ACA. What they didn't realize is they were essentially paying for barely any coverage. But now he also said the replacement will also allow, quote, individuals to come together in associations to buy insurance. Now, again, what does that even mean? Like, does that mean that you and your friends are going to get together as an association and buy insurance? I don't know. That maybe I don't know. The thing that I thought about when I read that was like, at first, I don't quite understand what he's going for. Number two, it kind of sounds like you're unionizing to buy insurance. That sounds weird. So I don't quite get what he's going for, and I really don't get what he's trying to do with this. How that even is supposed to solve any of the issues endemic with the ACA and with our healthcare system in general. Now, finally, he gets into some policy specifics. Two things. He said, quote, we're going to help people save through health savings accounts as well as a tax credit. So there's your specifics. That's it. Health savings accounts and tax credits. See, for those who are unaware, health savings accounts is basically where you can store money for your healthcare tax-free. You put that, you save that money, you put it in that account, and it doesn't get taxed. Oh, and that's it? Okay, well, look, it's actually a pretty good plan if you've got money to put in that account. If you've got a lot of money. If you're upper middle class or if you're the top 10%. Hey, that's great. You store some money in there, you can save up some serious bank, and then if you get sick, you can cover at least part of it. For poor people, however, that tends to not be the preferred method of insurance. This is essentially a boon for the wealthy. And look, they also get tax credits for having it. Again, that's going to help rich people. It's not going to help poor people or people with pre-existing conditions, which will likely be put into high-risk pools, which, yes, do get subsidized by the federal government, or might be, I don't know what Paul's plan is going to look like on that front. But that's how it's traditionally done with a high-risk pool. It does get some government subsidies to help bring down the cost. But it doesn't interfere with everyone else's insurance because they're in a separate pool. I guess that might lead to lower insurance costs. But still, it doesn't sound... It's going to lead to lower insurance costs for some people, but taxpayers will still be subsidizing people in those high-risk pools. So again, I don't see like the difference. Maybe there's a little bit, but again, I'm not really seeing it a whole lot. Okay. Now, as far as poor people who don't have pre-existing conditions, well, they're kind of SOL. Because you're not going to have money to put in that health savings account. And a tax credit's really not going to help you all that much if, again, you're too poor to take advantage of a health savings account or that tax credit. So, again, this is screwing the poor. I mean, what do you expect them to do? Expect them to go to their magic money tree, take some money off the tree, and put it in your health savings account? No, they're poor. That means they don't have money. That means they can't save money. People who are poorer generally spend most of their income on the basic necessities for survival. Things like food, things like rent, things like gas, car insurance, stuff like that. Or student loan debt, which is a big problem as well. They don't have a lot of money to stick into a health savings account. And even if they do, God bless, dude, put $20 into a health savings account every week, okay? Like, hey, I'm doing good. I'm saving some money in my health savings account. And suddenly you get cancer that costs $300,000 to pick, to fight. Well, that $20, even if you put it in for several years or a decade, it's not going to get anywhere close to matching that $300,000 cost. And I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know how much cancer costs. I'm assuming it's not cheap. So I'm just throwing that example. Okay. And look, as far as how much money they can even put into health savings accounts, you got to remember there's right now a big issue with people in America paying over half their income just to rent a place to live. You think they got extra money, even that $20? You think they got that money that they can throw into a health savings account? But it's tax-free. It's not going to help. It's a bad plan for poor people. And look, there's no details on whether or not Rand Paul is going to keep Medicaid the way that it is, or change that, or expand it, or whatever. Odds are, it's not likely to have any of that stuff involved in it. So I'm really curious to see how this plan is even going to help the poor. Because those are the people that are at the most risk. And ironically, those are more or less a lot of Republicans. A lot of the very people who voted for Donald Trump, who voted for people like Mitch McConnell or people like Rand Paul in Kentucky. Which, by the way, Kentucky, they had something called Connect through the ACA. The people loved it. They hated Obamacare, but they loved their Connect without realizing that it was the same thing. So, look, man, for me, looking at this plan or even what we know so far of this replacement plan, it seems like it's another obvious way to screw poor people and to benefit rich people. A tax credit, as I said, it's not going to help people. Okay, a health savings account is not going to help poor people. What is Rand Paul going to do with for the working poor? How is he going to help them afford insurance? And so far, I have not seen any answer on how even Trump Care is going to be able to cover people who are poor. And I think the reason is because they don't have a plan. Oh boy. So yeah, they are, as far as I can tell, man, poor people are screwed. It's not a good day to be poor in America. It never is a good time to be poor, but all right. On that same vein, all right. Now, during the election, there were several politicians, including Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders, that touched on the economic anxiety of the United States. Now, while some Trump supporters were driven by racism and hatred of the black guy in the White House, and there are polls that have borne that out, there were also people, mostly in the Bernie camp, but some in the Trump camp, that were legitimately hurting economically, and whether those in power like to believe it or not, especially here on the Democratic side, I think that they made quite an impact in the election because of those issues of economic anxiety. Now, the reason that I go to this, and the reason that I say that, is because there was a recent survey that shows that just over half of all Americans said that they have less than $1,000 in their checking and savings accounts combined, meaning, of course, that they cannot and have not been able to save money. And that's not necessarily a good thing. Now, Forbes reports that nearly a quarter, 24.8%, are even worse off, and they have less than $100 to their name in their accounts. So none for emergencies. They're pretty much SOL. Now, meanwhile, there's more details. 38% said that they would pay less than their full credit card balance this month, and 11% said that they would only be able to make the minimum payment. These, of course, are people in credit card debt, which is a huge, huge issue. It's over $1 trillion, and is dwarfed, of course, eclipsed by student loan debt, which is now one of the number one sources of debt in America facing Americans today. Now, look, some people, maybe not some of you watching, but there are some people out there that say, well, these people, they're just irresponsible. They suck at saving. They should learn how to save better. Watch some Dave Ramsey or something and stop pestering me. Well, okay. Well, look, let's be honest. Saving is generally a pretty good idea. It's saving for emergencies, saving for retirement. Highly recommend it. If Dave Ramsey had come out and said that, which he has probably multiple times, I'd be like, okay, great. Yeah, save for retirement, save for emergencies, great. Good advice. And it's also pretty freaking obvious. Okay. Now, but here's the other thing, right? We actually live in a capitalist consumer society. So you want to balance your saving and your spending. Now, right now, our economy is essentially based on, we need you to buy more crap. We need you to buy a lot of crap so that we can continue to run business. Okay, I get that, right? Now, whether that be food, of course, you need to spend, whether that be on food, health insurance, iPads, cars. We depend on that spending as a nation, as an economy. So you might think, okay, well, look, people are spending on all this useless crap that they don't need. But again, you actually need to spend for the economy to grow. So it's one reason why people aren't saving. Now, again, it goes back to that argument that, well, those people need to stop buying iPads. Those people need to stop buying stuff. Again, that's not the real problem here. I mean, look, you've got half of all Americans that hardly have any sort of savings. No, there's something rotten here. There's something different here, okay? There's something rotten in Denmark, except replace Denmark with America. While the recovery, yes, has mainly benefited the stock market and those at the top, it actually hasn't reached those at the bottom and the middle as much. For a lot of us, there is no economic recovery. And that, of course, adds into the Trump-Bernie Sanders phenomenon. Because they both kind of talked about this, Bernie much more so, and much better. He said, hey, we've got bad trade deals, we've got massive income inequality, we should actually do something about this. Donald Trump's like, it's the Mexicans. But anyway, look, in fact, there's a 2014 study from the National Association of Counties that reports that just 65 of the 3,069 counties in the United States have fully recovered from the 2008 recession. Now, that was, again, it was in 2014. The number of counties might be a little bit higher now, but 65 out of the 3,000 counties. Jesus, man. Still haven't recovered. That's a lot of the nation. Now, if you want to cheer on the Dow Jones, as a lot of Republicans did when it went up, thanks to Donald Trump, or thanks to the news of Donald Trump, he didn't actually do anything. He didn't have anything to do about it. Okay. Or you want to cheer on the jobs report, which again, Democrats and Barack Obama's like, oh, that's all me. Again, that's not necessarily the truth. You can't really say that it was old President Barack Obama that created this better atmosphere for jobs. It was Congress. It was the policies put forward by all of government working together to set the environment for business. Okay. But look, again, those numbers are actually good. The unemployment rate is much better than it was before. Again, you can't credit Obama for that. And the Dow doing pretty good. The stock market doing pretty good. But those don't reflect the reality of people on the ground. You see, when the stock market goes up, it is shareholders that benefit. Again, that's not a bad thing, but again, it doesn't reflect the reality of people on the ground. Okay? Now, the people that actually get money from when the stock market goes up are shareholders, investors, and people that, of course, can afford to invest. And also people with 401ks. They also get a bit of a benefit. Unfortunately, it doesn't reach a large majority of the middle class, and especially the working poor. You don't come up to a person who's working at the gas station and be like, how's your investment portfolio doing today, buddy? Oh man, it's doing pretty good. I traded some stocks earlier when I was on my break. No, that doesn't happen. That's not a thing. No, most of the people who are doing well are making money off of money. They're not actually getting paychecks. They're getting dividends. They're getting things like capital gains. Not reflective of the reality of most people. Now, again, I mentioned the 401ks. Look, I mentioned that a lot of people make money off money, or there's a certain section of the of the workforce that makes money off money. But most Americans, they're not in that sector. They're not in that club. Most Americans actually make money off of, and let's be honest, retail or retail services. Service sector. We are now a service economy. In fact, according to BLS data from 2014, the number of people working in just retail services only, is about 15 million people. Over 15 million. Now, that same data points out that manufacturing, there's over 12 million people working in 2014 in manufacturing. Now, you compare that with the entire service sector, not just retail, you've got over 120 million people working in either hospitality management, retail, professional business services, finance, etc. Again, compare that with the 12 million working in manufacturing. It is obvious that we are now a service economy. We don't make things anymore. We basically sell things. That's what we do as a nation. Going back to my earlier point of where, hey, it's not great to save all your money. You do have to spend money in order to continue to float the economy. Now, again, people working in retail, look, let's be honest, those 15 million people, they're not making a lot of money. In fact, according to BLS numbers, you have 2.6 million people specifically that make at or below the federal minimum wage of $7.25. So that's your fast food workers. Okay, that's your people who are that are servers. Okay, that are getting tips. And look, let's be honest. I know some tip workers actually make a pretty decent amount of money with tips. So that really doesn't get factored in. But there are still 2.6 million people, or over 2 million people, that don't get minimum wage, that make around $7.25 an hour. Again, that's not really a lot. Now, what also isn't factored in, by the way, are people who make $7.50 or $8.25. They're not included in the 2.6 million. So there's more that are making not very much, maybe a little bit over the minimum wage, but nowhere near a living wage, nowhere near $15 an hour. And that's, of course, this whole thing speaks to, of course, decades of wage stagnation, and that's what we have here. Now, I've got one of my favorite charts. I'm bringing out the charts, guys. I told you this was going to get, a little long and a little wonky, but I got a chart for you. But again, it's one of my favorite charts because it kind of illustrates why people can't save. This right here. You look at that, wages stagnant, productivity amazing. Congratulations, America. You're more productive than you ever have been, but you're getting stiffed. That money is not going to you. And of course, I will get to that in a minute too before I wrap this up. Now, I want to point out some of this is automation, computers in the workplace, needing less people, robots, etc., right? And also you have the general awesomeness of the American worker. You guys are more productive. Great, fantastic. Good work. But again, you're not getting the gains. I've got another chart here that I want to show you on this. That's the same one. Boom. When it comes to income, that red line at the top, that is the top 1%. Oh, that is where the money went. See, it's not going to you. It's going to the guys at the very top. They're taking that money. They came in and they vacuumed up all that extra money. They took it. Again, executive compensation, not necessarily in the form of income, but of stock options and things like that. Their income has exploded. And you also have, of course, tax rates on the wealthy that went down. The CEO pay went up. And, of course, workers were stuck. They stagnated. Moral of the story is, again, that money went somewhere. You know where it went? It went to the rich. Americans, part of the reason that Americans can't save is that they're not getting this money. The rich made off with most of it. They did not share their gains with the workers. So, I mean, what they did instead was cut their own taxes by giving legal bribes, by the way, to politicians with the aim of shifting the tax burden off of them onto you. That's what happened. They rigged the economic system in their favor. And the result is over half of the American people, around 150 million, just don't have the ability to save that much money anymore. There are a lot of people that are stuck in jobs where they're unable to save. And look, not to mention, you've got the rising debt, you've got inflation, you've got the price of consumer goods continuing to rise. Services like healthcare, childcare, a shrinking middle class, a growing class of the working poor. But what you have as well to go along with all that is a pretty fat 0.1%. Doesn't take a genius to figure out what happened. If you wonder why Americans can't save, look at the charts, look at the data, and decide for yourself. As for me, I know what happened. And I believe that this is another example of the greatest heist the elites have ever pulled on a population. Okay. I know those took forever to get through. Just stay with me here. We've got some fun stuff. In fact, I want to save the millennial story for tomorrow, because it's along the same lines of what I just talked about, but more targeted. So I think we'll skip that for now. We'll go to some fun stuff, and hopefully that'll last us for the rest of the show. All right. Oh, this guy. It's only a matter of time before Donald... Let me start that again. It's only a matter of time before someone took Donald Trump's grab him by the pussy comment literally. In this case, it was a 70-year-old Connecticut Republican who was arrested for grabbing the genitals of a woman. Now, this is Christopher von Kaiserling. And he was arrested last Wednesday in Greenwich Town Hall and charged with fourth-degree sexual assault. Now, fourth-degree sexual assault is essentially a misdemeanor charge, okay? And it was, of course, because he decided he wanted to grab this girl's groin. Now, the incident, according to Raw Story, which took place in December, began when the 57-year-old victim encountered von Kaiserling in the hallway. Now, the two got into a little bit of a heated political argument, in which, during so, Kaiserling reportedly remarked, quote, "You know what? I love this new world. I no longer have to be politically correct." And, of course, you see what follows. When the woman tried to walk away, von Kaiserling allegedly reached from behind to place his hand between her legs and pinch her in the groin. So, he's literally grabbing her by the pussy. Well, hey, man, if we've got no political correctness, then I can just do whatever I want. I can grab you by the crotch. It's okay. I can do that. Now, she then allegedly told him after that, quote, if he was proud of doing that, then I can't help you, after which he called her a lazy, blood-sucking union employee. So, yeah. So first he grabs her crotch, and then says, you're a lazy bloodsucker because you're a union employee. Because you decided, I don't know, to band together with your fellow workers in order to fight for your own rights. How dare you do that, you bloodsucking leech? I'm going to grab your crotch. That's what we're dealing with, man. Now, he also reportedly said, quote, it would be your word against mine, and nobody would believe you. Except, apparently, there's video evidence that I don't have, but has been reviewed by police. So this is one of the times where I actually trust the police on something. Because it's not a cover-your-ass operation. They're actually like, yeah, we actually do have witnesses, and we have surveillance footage of this happening. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Now, so, look, basically, what you have is all the hallmarks of somebody who is very Trump-inspired, a Republican politician, saying that, hey man, I don't got to be politically correct anymore. This is a great new age. I can say and do whatever I want. I can grab you by the pussy, and I love this new world where I can do so and not get in trouble for it. Well, it turns out you can still get in trouble for it. You can't actually do whatever you want. It's amazing how this guy didn't realize that. Because, hey, it turns out sexual assault. If you unwantedly touch someone somewhere, that's kind of a crime. Just saying. Now, of course, his lawyer disagrees. Big surprise. According to the Greenwich Times, the charges, he said, were the result of, quote, a jocular moment with the woman. Jocular. He said, quote, in almost 30 years of practicing law in this town, I would say Mr. von Kaiserling is the one person I would never suspect of having any inappropriate sexual predilections. Now, this is his lawyer, Phil Russell. Now, he also continues, there was a playful gesture in front of witnesses. Which, again, he's saying, yeah, he did this in front of people. And brazenly did this. Brazenly grabbed this woman by the crotch. And was proud of it. Now he said, his lawyer said, quote, it was too trivial to be considered anything of significance. To call it sexual assault is not based on reality. Maybe not in the weird reality that you live in, dude. But here in the real world, we actually do call that sexual assault. You see, look. Here's the thing, right? You're saying, oh, no, this guy, he's not pervy. He didn't actually mean to grab her crotch as a sexual thing. No. It's just, she was having fun, right? You don't have to be into somebody. It doesn't have to be a sexual thing for you to grab somebody, okay? What it is that this is a display of power. I've got the power to do whatever I want with you and whatever I want to you. Because I'm an elected official, and I've been empowered by the era of Trump. Hey, look, Trump can do it, man. He got elected. Then it means I can do it to you. Because I don't care about you. I don't care about what you want. I'm in charge now. It is a display of power. I'm going to assert my dominance as a white Republican male over you, a lesser person, a woman. That's what this says to me. That's what this says. That's the message. And look, I don't buy his lawyer's excuse. It's laughable. It is not a playful gesture. Okay? Being grabbed in your crotch by someone during an argument has never once been considered playful. It is not fun. It is not jocular. It's not funny. It's actually incredibly invasive and pretty humiliating. And to this woman, enraging. But again, as you've heard him, he thinks that now Donald Trump is going to be the president of the United States, and this is really hard to say that Donald Trump is going to be the next president. Right now that he is, the rule book's gone. They go out the window, man. It's gone. He thinks that he can say and do whatever he wants without pushback. And look, you got to wonder how many other people are now emboldened by this. Donald Trump got about 61 million votes. How many more people in positions of power are now emboldened? And on the voters, look, you guys, whether you think it's right or not, you still gave it a pass by voting for this. Oh, it's locker room talk. It's locker room talk. It's fine. Let's forget about the rape allegations from his first wife. Let's forget about all that stuff. It's in the past. It's not going to have any impact on what he's doing now. Might not, but it certainly seems to be having an impact on some of the people who supported him doing this. You gave him a pass, man. And he's inspired other Republicans to show their true colors. Congratulations. Now, von Kaiserling was released on a $2,500 bond and given a court date of January 25th. Now, look, it's going to be interesting to see what kind of punishment he faces, or any at all, for flagrantly violating the personal space of another person. I don't know what's going to happen. I hope there is justice. But the cynic in me says likely not a lot will happen, if anything, and he will likely end up getting elected or reelected again. And I'm not talking about Trump. I'm talking about this guy. Because I don't believe that there is any justice left in this world. All right. Anyway. Let me just get my stuff here all organized. All right. One last story for you guys. And it's this guy. Recognize him? Now, in an appearance by the self-described Twitter villains, Milo Yiannopoulos and former Turing CEO Martin Shkreli, also known as the Pharma Bro, or also known as the most hated man on the internet, did not end up going on very well. Now, Raw Story reports that a planned stop at UC Davis on Yiannopoulos' tour had to be canceled on Friday night due to a lot of protests on campus. Now, according to SFist, Milo's supporters and members of the Davis College Republicans claimed that the event was shut down over safety concerns. So they couldn't guarantee the safety, or so they claim, couldn't guarantee the safety because of the protests of Milo Yiannopoulos or Martin Shkreli, and that actually is proven right. It's proven right. Now, that, of course, did not stop Martin Shkreli for showing up anyway and getting hit in the face by what possibly could have been dog poop. Could have been. We don't know. But if it was, it would cap off what would be considered a pretty crappy day. Now, aside from that, there was some actual violence. There were some clashes between Milo supporters and protesters that were against him. According to ABC 10, there was one confirmed arrest, but it's not clear what side the person who was arrested belonged to. There were also several fights that were reported to have broken out, and some people were reportedly taken out of the building by police forcefully. So you also had reports from ABC 10 that claimed that one protester had allegedly thrown hot coffee at their crew, their camera crew, and equipment. So look, hey, like, it doesn't matter what side you're on. If you're for pro Milo, if you're anti Milo, don't throw coffee at people. Don't throw coffee at reporters or their equipment. That shit's expensive, dude. Don't do that. You might hurt someone. Their whole point of being there is to report what's going on. Don't do that. Okay? And besides, unlike dog poop, coffee can actually hurt somebody. But look, at the end of the day, let's be honest, let's not get into fights, let's not throw things at people. Even if you and everyone else around feels like that person deserves it, don't do it. And trust me, I don't think anybody deserves dog poop in the face more than Martin Shkreli. That guy has a uniquely punchable face. But I wouldn't recommend punching him. I'm just saying, don't do it. And the reason that I'm saying this, even though it might be an unpopular opinion, is that you're going to give them ammunition. You're going to help their cause. You see, there's nothing more than these guys like is to be the victim, like to be the heel. They relish this. Shkreli loves this. Yiannopoulos loves being the victim, man. They love it. They eat it up. And now, of course, since there were some violent clashes, one person arrested, Yiannopoulos comes out later and says, supporters of Yiannopoulos came out and said, there were hammers, smashed windows, and barricades that were being torn away. These protesters were so horribly violent that we just don't know what to do. Man, Milo had to get out of there. I understand. He had to get out of there. The violent protesters, tolerant liberals. Well, no, that's actually not what happened. Yes, as I mentioned before, there were violence, there were some fights between supporters, protesters, and attendees. But there were no smashed windows, there were no hammers. In fact, UC Davis came out and said these allegations completely false. And there's, of course, that one arrest. Now, and look, people who don't believe that or might not believe that, you got to think, if there was a riot, if there was all that stuff, you don't think the cops and the media would be all over it? Of course they would. They love making protesters look bad. And in this case, there wasn't really a whole lot to make them look worse. For again, the fighting that we don't know what side started the scuffles between those two sides to begin with. And frankly, it doesn't really matter. Don't do it. Don't get into fights with people. But now, supporters of Yiannopoulos also said that this cancellation of the event is censorship. That is that classic thing, man. The victim, right? Being the victim. You know what it's not? It's a lot of things, but it's not censorship. Now, censorship is actually when the government comes in to shut you down. Did the government shut them down? No. No. When the people shut you down, which is what happened here, well, that's completely different. However, look, I might actually make you guys mad by saying this, but I actually do believe that Yiannopoulos has a right to be able to speak at that school. He should have a chance, I should say. Maybe not a right, but a chance. And the reason I say that is because in college, you're supposed to be exposed to different viewpoints, even if those viewpoints are endemically terrible or don't agree with your own. And look, Milo, he's got some viewpoints that are very hateful and inflammatory. I don't like them at all. That said, he should be allowed to speak there, and protesters should also be allowed to protest there. Why? Because that is considered speech, free speech. Okay? They've got the right to protest with speech that they disagree with. And Milo and Shkreli have the right to do those speeches. So look, both sides here, you should be allowed to do your thing as long as it remains peaceful. Why? Because number one, it makes you look good in the face of the terrible things that the other side espouses. Number two, it doesn't give people like Milo a chance to play the victim. And they love it. They can't wait to be victimized. It's amazing. And they do it to garner people's sympathy, and they're actually really good at it. So, look, don't make him a victim. Don't make him a victim. The worst thing that you could do to people like Milo Yiannopoulos is to essentially ignore them. They're the internet trolls. They're the YouTube trolls. They love the attention, and you're not supposed to feed them. Martin Shkreli recently got suspended from Twitter. I didn't agree with that position either. But he loves his new victimhood, man, because he's a troll. And now, look, Milo Yiannopoulos is going on a book tour. He got a book deal because he's good at playing the victim. So, and look, now he's making bank off trolling you guys. Because that's what he does. He's a professional troll. Now, here's what you do. You got to fight them by fighting their ideas and not the personalities behind them. And look, it's easy to fall into doing exactly what they want you to do. To focus essentially all your hatred onto them personally. I mean, this guy wants you to be like, it makes me think of the scene from Star Wars. Milo Yiannopoulos is essentially the Emperor saying, strike me down with all of your hatred. Your journey towards the dark side will be complete. That's it. That's what he wants you to do. Because it actually makes his job easier. So as much as I like seeing people stand up to these people, I don't like the way that they're actually doing it because I don't see how it helps. So again, the best thing to do is you ignore these people. You ignore them, you don't give them the oxygen that they need. You don't give them the victimhood that they crave. And most importantly, don't get into fights, don't throw poop. As much as I enjoyed reading the reactions to people throwing the poop, or think of it this way. I mean, this guy, he had to find the poop. He had to hold it and then wait for Shkreli. I mean, that was some planning. And as much as I love that, I cannot endorse it. I have to disagree with it and say that is not the way that we should go. Don't throw poop. Don't make them a victim. What you need to do is you need to let these people hang themselves on their own words. All right. That's it. I'll have the millennial story tomorrow because that's another long one. FYI Nation, gonna have to say goodbye to you now. Thank you for listening, and we'll just shut that down. The rest of you, again, I want to thank you guys for going around the nation with me today. As always, I appreciate you guys. Love you guys at home. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for sharing. Make sure to like this video. And if you haven't already, subscribe. YouTube.com/TYTNation. And help us, man. I want to get to 35,000 subscribers in around March. I think we can do it. That's about 2,500 subscribers. So I know that you guys can do it. So again, thank you so much for your support, for your viewership, and I appreciate every one of you guys. But I'm going to get out of here. We'll see you guys tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern, right here for the live show. And thanks a lot. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation.